Start with contracting sprites. Chapter 216, End of Collective Training, Contracted Light Ball. It actually has both light and dark attributes at the same time. Light and darkness repel each other. How do the two attributes combine? Su Hao's knowledge reserves couldn't explain the difficult problem in front of him. But he didn't need it. Light ball, 3 bright night spirit, light/dark, unlock with 9 intelligence points, a dark silhouette, unlock with 30 intelligence points. Su Hao glanced at his personal information again. Character, Su Hao. Sprite, Flaming Spirit Crow, Reverie Butterfly, Water Unicorn Beast, Electric Bear. Intelligence points, 586. Before school started, his intelligence points were only 89. During the first semester of the first year, he spent a lot of intelligence points on full cultivation plan for the Electric Bear, upgrade plan for the Fire Spirit Crow, Sun Form, Spiritual Orb, Fire Crow / Meat Bouncing Thunder Ball, and so on. At last, there were more than 100 points. But more income. The contributing factors included the library of Whale Island University, the Sprite Cultivator Cup, the laboratory, and so on. The library alone provided him with 400 plus intelligence points. He had also learned a lot from listening to the lectures of various masters in the Sprite Cultivator Cup. In the laboratory, he personally experimented and researched. He learned a lot of knowledge that he couldn't understand through books, and he also gained some. But apart from the library, the most would still depend on the exploration of the new world. The excavation of many precious materials can provide me with intelligence. Especially the discovery of the land of light. Su Hao remembered that when he had just seen that huge, dazzling light elemental crystal, intelligence points jumped rapidly. 3 points per second. It rang for 10 seconds. He hadn't seen such a large amount of intelligence points in a long time. This was the first time he had such a rich income, but at least for now, he was rich and imposing. Without hesitation, Su Hao unlocked the evolution plan of Bright Night Spirit. Instantly, countless information flooded into his mind. He let out a long sigh. So it maintains the balance of light and darkness. The Bright Night Spirit itself is also an unstable state, but there's no doubt that it can possess both the power of healing and erosion. As expected of a form that can only be unlocked with 10 intelligence points. Su Hao continued to use his extraordinary eyesight to observe the light balls around him. In fact, since they had always lived in the land of light, beside many light elemental crystals, the talents of light element sprites were all very high class. Even though they were limited to being in their initial forms. After all, they were wild. First evolution, second evolution. By the time they have grown and developed, they would have already wasted a lot of their potential. The Holy Brilliance Spirit King had luckily broken through to the extraordinary level, but its potential had basically been exhausted. The core of the light balls were like translucent balls of dough, constantly emitting light. Like glowing balloons. Su Hao looked at them one by one. Finally, he found the ball of light that satisfied him the most. He squatted in front of the ball of light and stretched out his hand. The light ball took a step back and another step. When it reached the dead end, it pressed tightly against the rock wall behind it. Su Hao picked up the light ball, hugged it in his arms, and squeezed it. It was soft, and if pressed hard, it would even change shape. The little light ball let out a fierce warning and kept struggling. The whole light ball was squeezed into a long, flat shape, but it still couldn't break free. Those big hands were like the hardest rock, locking it firmly. This is the one. Do you want to convince it yourself? Sure. Heavenly King Wu recalled his junior's stunning performance at Bear King Mountain. He felt that there wasn't much of a problem. Perhaps. Little Junior's charm was indeed extraordinary, especially in the eyes of sprites. Heavenly King Wu, who was already a middle-aged man, sighed. He was clearly a handsome, cute student back then too. In that case, let's go back to school and throw the things here out to the professionals to settle. Heavenly King Wu said, then added, step back a little. Then, he spread his fingers. In an instant, overlapping cracks appeared in the space in front of him. The next moment, bang! The ground shook. Su Hao saw a huge creature appear. It was like a small mound, with small trees growing all over it. Countless thick vines danced in the air like green pythons. 10,000 vine turtle. A huge evolved 10,000 vine turtle. The moment it appeared, the sprites in the land of light panicked even more. They squeezed and curled up into a corner. However, the 10,000 vine turtle closed its eyes and didn't move for a long while. It seemed to be taking a nap, and only the monarch rank pressure was still emitting. At the same time, trading puppets' psychic power enveloped them. Heavenly King Wu, Su Hao, Butterfly, and the other sprites ascended and disappeared with a whoosh. A few days later, at the gathering point on the south bank of Thousand Peak Island, the students who had explored the island for many days returned one after another. Some people found so many precious materials that they could not fit them in their backpacks. They held them in their hands or placed them on their sprites. But there were also some who were empty-handed and looked miserable. They were forced to return to the camp a few days earlier. At this moment, their sprites were undergoing treatment. There was a school's acquisition point in front of the camp. Buying materials from students at market prices in the outside world. This was the only time. A total of $1,330,000. You think it's too little? Look what you found. How did you learn to appraise precious materials? That's wild beast feces, not minerals. Next. 368 credits and $2,660,000. Not bad. Only high-level materials will be bought by the school with credits, remember that. Stop asking, if you ask then you won't get any. If you don't want to sell it, you can keep it for your own use. You can bring it out if you want. Next. When Su Hao returned to the gathering point, he saw that it was hot and noisy here, like a market. There were really students trading materials. He came empty-handed. All kinds of matters in the land of light had just been settled. A batch of light element sprites were brought to Dragon Nation, and that special area was also taken over by the school. He lowered his head and looked at the light ball in his hand. Well, he wasn't completely empty-handed. He was hugging the light ball and communicating amiably. After a few days of communication, the little light ball clearly started to have a good impression of him. Look, it didn't even struggle anymore. Su Hao heard its happy cry. On the opposite side, a boy in white walked over. Su Hao saw that his polar nine tails was hung full of bags made of vines. It looked like he had gained a lot. It was Mr. Bai. Su Hao greeted him. Bai Hongzhen was puzzled. He clearly saw Su Hao coming back from the island, but he didn't bring anything with him. He had been observing Su Hao all along. He remembered clearly that Su Hao had brought 5 tactical backpacks with him before he left. Where's your tactical backpack? He looked at the horse, its back was empty. He couldn't help but ask, did you encounter danger? I did meet a tricky enemy. What enemy? An extraordinary wild sprite, it chased us for a long time. What? Bai Hongzhen's eyes widened. Su Hao, he was already that powerful? He could actually escape the pursuit of an extraordinary level sprite, and it looked like his sprite's injuries weren't serious. Even if Su Hao was unlucky, he had no choice but to. Did you just catch that light ball? In that case, your harvest isn't bad either. Bai Hongzhen noticed the little light ball that made sounds. Seeing that it had a very good relationship with Su Hao, he must have contracted it. He couldn't help but feel envious. That was a light element sprite. It was extremely rare. It wasn't a matter of whether it was strong or not, but the light attribute. Sometimes, it could do things that other elemental sprites couldn't. Besides, the development potential of both the Holy Brilliance Spirit and Dark Star Spirits were pretty good. He looked envious, but in fact, he was really envious. Fortunately, Su Hao didn't gain anything in other aspects, which made him somewhat balanced, a little. He had only thought halfway when he heard. Well, the harvest is pretty good. I discovered some light elemental crystals in a group of light element sprites. There are only about 100 of them, not bad, still alright, ha ha ha. Bai Hongzhen. He looked at Su Hao in disbelief. His fragile heart received 10,000 critical hits. Instructor, someone is cheating. After the collective training ended, Su Hao resumed his daily and ordinary learning life. It was about the same as the previous semester. What was different was that many students started to accept missions related to the new world. After returning to school for more than 10 days, the little light ball was finally successfully contracted under the influence of Su Hao's love. Feeling the connection in his soul, Su Hao sighed. It's too difficult. It's much harder than abducting the big fat bear. Electric bear, howl, howl, howl. Chapter 217, Light and Darkness Evolution in 3 minutes. In the night sky, the moon and stars were sparsely distributed. Su Hao strolled along the main road of the school. The street lamps on both sides gave off a gentle glow. At you. A white light ball floated around him. It suddenly made an sound and flew to the top of Su Hao's head, covering him like a hat. Soft and warm. Its size was just right. It turned his head into a big light bulb. After the small light ball covered it, it seemed to have remembered something. It suddenly twisted and looked around. It was only when it didn't see the figure that it heaved a sigh of relief. The whole ball softened and covered the throne steadily. Su Hao raised his hand and looked at the time on his wristband. After calculating with his fingers, he called for his personal mount. A dumb unicorn appeared. He flipped onto the horse's back. Before long, he arrived at the mission building, the exchange office next door. Hello, I want to exchange for a dark elemental crystal about 8 pounds. 8 pounds. The staff member from the exchange office looked up and saw a huge light, a light bulb. He was stunned. His professionalism made him snap back to reality quickly, and he emphasized, "Are you sure it's 8 pounds? Yes, 8 pounds. Please show me your student card." The staff member took the student card and successfully deducted the fee with a beep. The way he looked at Su Hao was really different now. How many years would it take for him to gather 8 pounds worth of dark elemental crystals? Yet, the student in front of him bought it without batting an eyelid. After the staff member swiped the card, he typed out a receipt and handed it to Su Hao. "Please wait in the lounge." Su Hao called for the dumb unicorn and Furble to rest next door. Then, he checked the credits balance on the Sprite commandeering wristband. Well, a little more. More than 50,000 credits, remaining. 3S grade exchange certificates, 7A grade exchange certificates. Basically, he could choose any treasure in the exchange office. The school opened its treasure vault to him again, promising to exchange credits for up to 3 treasures. I didn't expect the school to actually have a mysterious treasure vault. In fact, Sprite universities were equivalent to a force. The principal and professors were the higher UPS of the organization. The instructors were core members. These students were peripheral members. Normally speaking, one wouldn't be able to come into contact with the school's real treasure vault. Su Hao didn't go to the treasure vault for the time being. But he also bought a lot of useful items. For example, elemental crystals. The sprites each had an accessory made by a master sculptor that hung on their bodies. There was one hanging on Dumb Unicorn's neck. He waited in the lounge for a while before the staff finally delivered, a box about the size of a backpack. Su Hao opened the box and took a look. It was a dark element crystal. Just by being placed there, it seemed to absorb all the light in the surroundings, making his vision darken. Slap! He closed the box and left the exchange office. Gloomy garden. It was quiet and cold. He couldn't see a person or a sprite. Only the hooves of the dumb unicorn stepped on the ground, producing ta-ta-ta sounds. Su Hao came here to arrange evolution for the little light ball. When it was contracted, it was not yet entry level, but its spiritual force was more than 100. After Su Hao nurtured it for a while, it broke through to entry level. Now, its potential under the initial form was more or less excavated. It could evolve. Su Hao pulled the furball off his head, rubbed it conveniently, and placed it on the flower bed. Before long, it floated up again, swaying about like a hydrogen balloon. At. It called. The light illuminated the surroundings. You're going to evolve. You have to calm down and regulate your breathing, understand? Su Hao looked at the time again. The evolution conditions of the bright night spirit were very harsh. It wasn't just that the materials were expensive, it also required precise control of time. The timing of Furbal's evolution is at 3 minutes past 3 am. It's not to say that it needs to be precise to every minute and second, but just by missing the timing by a bit could cause it to evolve into a morning light spirit or a twilight spirit. The amount of light element crystals and dark element crystals must also be controlled well. Su Hao took out the materials in his backpack one by one. Then, he used an experimental device to remove some light elemental crystals and dark elemental crystals. Then, he used the device to test the energy of one big and one small elemental crystal. The stronger one was the dark elemental crystal. The reason was very simple. The small light ball had absorbed a lot of light element energy in the past. It had to make up for it with more dark elements in order to maintain its balance. Su Hao set up the evolution field and waited patiently. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Time passed. Su Hao looked down at the wristband, then at it. It's about time. Go. You. It swallowed 5 light element essences and 5 dark element essences, then quickly flew into the evolution field. Threads appeared and wrapped around it, interweaving into a huge light cocoon. Unlike the light cocoon Su Hao had seen in the past, the light cocoon in front of him was interweaving between black and white. Light and dark elements dissipated, collided, and destroyed each other. Compared to the evolution of Butterfly and the rest, the cost of the Furbal's evolution was more than 10 times. Colliding and annihilating, too much elemental energy was wasted. Su Hao couldn't avoid it either. Fortunately, I don't lack money. My heart doesn't ache, it doesn't ache. He silently chanted a few words, his eyes staring at the huge light cocoon. Time ticked, and finally. Crack, 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 crack. Cracks appeared and covered the entire light cocoon in the blink of an eye. A cry came out of the light cocoon. It was no longer as immature as before, but had a hint of gentleness and coldness. Like overlapping sounds, Su Hao couldn't describe his feelings either. At the next moment, the light cocoon shattered. The fragments disintegrated, turning into countless light dots that dissipated. A new sprite appeared in Su Hao's eyes. It seemed to be made of mist. It had a human-shaped silhouette, standing tall and graceful. Its face was blurry, and one could only see countless ribbons interweaving, like the fringe in front of its forehead and the long hair behind its head. Surprisingly, its hair was half black and half white. Its lower body couldn't be seen, and its feet couldn't be seen. The mist covered its feet like a long dress, hovering a palm or two above the ground. Su Hao estimated by looking, that the hovering bright night spirit was half a head shorter than him. Sprite, bright night spirit, name changeable, entry level. Characteristics: 1. Light of healing. 2. Darkness erosion. Cultivation plan, omitted, not unlocked. Unique skills: Light Shield, Light of Healing, Light Energy Ball, Dark Energy Ball. Evolutionary Pathway: Light Ball, Bright Night Spirit, Eternal Night Glory, Concubine, unlock with 29 intelligence points. The two characteristics have evolved perfectly. The Light of Healing allowed the healing ability of Light Element unique skills to increase slightly, and turned it into a pure healing energy. It was light, but not light. It wouldn't clash directly with the dark and ghost attributes. At most, the healing effect would be slightly weaker. And the darkness erosion allowed the Bright Night Spirit's dark element spiritual force to possess the devouring effect. It was just that. Its current state is unstable, and it's unable to use both characteristics at the same time. It needs to train continuously. After the light cocoon broke, the Bright Night Spirit floated towards him with a few-few-whissie. It floated high up, as if it wanted to return to the familiar throne above its head, but only then did it realize that it was no longer a furball, but a Bright Night Spirit that had already grown. Few-fusy. Its head drooped down, looking depressed and pitiful. Suddenly, under the night sky, the rays of light emanating from its body dimmed, and its long hair became as black as ink. Thick dark elemental energy surrounded it. As it called, its depressed look was swept away. It became satisfied and let out a faint laughter of Su Hao held his forehead. It was indeed not very smart. Chapter 218, Light Dark Bright Night Spirit. The evolution was very successful. The Bright Night Spirit was a little crazy. Su Hao felt that it shouldn't be a big problem. He packed up the remaining materials and rode the dumb unicorn. Instead of returning to the dormitory, he went to the training area. Beep, student card. Beep, intermediate training room. The ceiling lights were turned on, illuminating the whole spacious training room like it was daytime. But under the daylight, there was a faint shadow of night drifting. I have to experiment. The data alone isn't intuitive enough. Su Hao thought. He then saw that there were only 4 unique skills on the list of Bright Night Spirit. It shivered slightly. After all, it was different from the big fat bear. It wasn't a second-generation heir with a legacy. The only dark element unique skill, Dark Energy Ball, was comprehended by itself during evolution. It used to be a light ball, so it's definitely more familiar with light element unique skills. Aim at that target and use the Light Energy Ball. Su Hao shouted. It kept shaking and swaying. The Bright Night Spirit, which looked a little like a dumb unicorn, suddenly stopped. It tilted its head, as if thinking. After a few seconds, it raised its head. Its ink-black hair gradually lit up, turning into a blazing white, and then a little golden light. It was dazzling. The body that seemed to be made of mist also changed from its original dark color to bright color. It stood there, its hair fluttering, countless light blooming, like a holy priest. Hearing Su Hao's words, it pressed its palms together. In the middle of its 2 hazy palms, a light spot the size of a grain of rice appeared. Then, it expanded rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, it formed a dazzling light element energy ball. It hung between its 2 palms. The casting time is short and the stability is strong. The Bright Night Spirit's usage of light element unique skills is indeed pretty good. Su Hao thought in secret. Then, he saw the Bright Night Spirit raise its hand, aim at the bullseye, and throw it out gently. The dazzling light ball flew out slowly, drew an arc in the air, and finally hit the target. Foo-foo! It closed its eyes and secretly opened them again to look. Su Hao was rendered speechless. He had to think of something. From throwing the energy ball to hitting the target, the whole process lasted, for 3 whole seconds. 3 seconds? Was that throwing an energy ball? Even throwing a silk ball wasn't so slow. There must be a mistake somewhere. He thought about it and got the Bright Night Spirit to use Light Shield and Light of Healing. It raised its hand, and light scattered. In an instant, a huge light shield in the shape of pale gold and translucent appeared in front of him. The next moment, another bright light pillar appeared and enveloped his body. It brought Su Hao a warm feeling. The fatigue from the whole night was swept away. Every cell in his body was jumping for joy, and he was more than 10 times more energetic. The effect is pretty good, but the specific healing ability still needs to be given to the dumb unicorn for a taste. Su Hao turned and looked over, only to see the back view of a dumb unicorn fleeing. It opened the door of the training room by itself, closed it again, and left swiftly under Su Hao's contractual perception. Forget it. Let's try the dark energy ball. He suppressed his desire to bring the dumb unicorn back and gave the order. In an instant, the bright night spirit's blazing white hair turned as black as ink. It opened its hands, and in its palms, a dark and deep ball appeared. It pushed it out forcefully. In just an instant, the dark energy ball exploded on the target. Boom! 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 The dark energy ball appeared, was thrown out, appeared, and was thrown out. The hard-fixed target kept shaking from the explosions. Bright night spirit's black hair flew up as it let out a loud laughter. It blasted out dozens of dark energy balls in a row. It only stopped when its spiritual force was exhausted. It ran to the target and stretched out its hand to pull. Bang! 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 The target that was originally cracking inch by inch was finally pulled out by it. The bright night spirit became even more excited when it saw this, and it danced with joy. Su Hao was rendered speechless. His usage of dark energy balls is inferior to light energy balls, but... He looked at the black bright night spirit, then recalled the white one. He felt. Not only was there something wrong with the bright night spirit's brain, its symptoms were also pretty serious. Quiet, quiet, turn your hair white. Fufu fufu. The white bright night spirit stood elegantly and quietly at the side. Only the pair of eyes on its blurry face remained somewhat curious as it sized up its surroundings. Su Hao reached out his hand, bit by bit, towards bright night spirit's shoulder and went right through. It's warm, there's a touch, but it's also more illusionary. After fiddling with its body for a while, Su Hao came to a conclusion. On its body, only its hair is a physical body. The other parts of its body are illusionary elemental bodies. At this stage, after it evolves into the eternal night glory concubine, the elemental body will form a physical entity. From this point of view, it's the same as the other two pathways. Su Hao had already unlocked the evolution conditions of the eternal night glory concubine, and had a very deep understanding of its final form. He even had a lot of insights into the holy brilliance and dark star spirits. After thinking for a while, he had an idea of bright night spirit's future development direction. At the moment, when it uses light element and dark element unique skills, it has to be maintained in two different states. The interchange between them is delayed, and it's also related to the environment. It was nighttime now. Even though the lights in the training room were as bright as day, it was still relatively smooth when switching to dark form. There were several seconds of delay when it was cutting into light. The first step, bright night spirit, you have to be able to switch between light and dark freely. Fufu. Second step, you have to be able to use dark element unique skills under the light element state. Under the dark element state, only when you use light element unique skills can you combine the unique skills of the two elements. Fufu. Third step, increase the power of the unique skill. Su Hao discovered that although the bright night spirit had the weakness of needing to switch states, it could still turn it into an advantage. Transform the light and dark sides into a true light/dark form, just like the flaming feather form of the dazed crow. Su Hao had no clue at the moment regarding the secret manuals of light and dark elements. After thinking about it, he decided to start from its unique skills. He opened the Sprite commandeering wristband and bought several unique skills. There were extreme light, touch of darkness, dark star group, extreme day, extreme night. There weren't many unique skills of the light and dark elements. Su Hao searched through Whale Island University's library website and only found these few moves. He touched Bright Night Spirit's hair and said, "I've found you a few online classes. Take a look first, I'll teach you later." Phew phew. Phew phew. The Bright Night Spirit nodded obediently. After resting for a long time and being fed jade powder by Su Hao, the Bright Night Spirit had already mostly recovered. It continued to practice and familiarize itself with the power of its new form. Its form was clearly different from both the Morning Light Spirit and the Twilight Spirit. Su Hao thought about it. He had to inform Senior Wu, Master Yao, and the others. He took out his cell phone and noticed the time. It was only past 5, and the sky wasn't even bright yet. It was impossible to call. Su Hao used WeChat to send a message to Senior Wu and Master Yao. "When I go back, I'll have to start writing theses again." Sigh, the troubles of a genius. As he thought about it, his cell phone vibrated. The screen lit up. "Senior Wu, what, you?" "Senior Wu, Trading Puppet Glance.jpg. "Senior Wu, where are you now?" Su Hao was rendered speechless. Didn't Senior Wu love his hairline a lot? He was just about to type when his cell phone vibrated again. "Master Yao, what?" "Wait a minute, I'll be there in 3 minutes." Su Hao, +1. He touched his chin and fell into deep thought. Senior Wu and Master Yao were both well-known figures in the country. Perhaps the reason why they could achieve so much was because they had seen cell phones at 5 a.m. At this point, the first glimmer of dawn had yet to appear. The staff on duty in the training area hall yawned and scrolled through his cell phone in boredom. Suddenly, a figure appeared and flew in like a ghost. The guard on duty was just about to say, "Hello, may I ask?" Before he finished speaking, the figure flew into a certain corridor and disappeared without a trace. The guard on duty was stunned for a moment before he suddenly froze. "Wait, that looks like Heavenly King Wu." As he was thinking, another figure rushed over, suddenly came in front of him, and slapped the hall service counter. A clang echoed. The person asked anxiously, "Which training room is Su Hao in? Quickly check it for me." "Hey? Oh." The staff on duty was stunned. He recognized the person in front of him whose hairline was pretty high. It was Master Yao. He checked immediately. "He's in room B16. With a flash, he disappeared in the blink of an eye. The staff on shift rubbed his eyes, feeling the impact. Shock, a certain Heavenly King, a certain Master Sprite cultivator actually came to the training area late at night for him. In the training room, Senior Wu widened his eyes. Trading Puppet also widened its eyes. Master Yao's eyes widened even more. "It's switching between light and dark attributes?" No, it's just light suppressing darkness and darkness suppressing light, causing a certain attribute to manifest on the outside." An impressive discovery. According to this deduction, maybe I can. Master Yao was very chatty. He took out a piece of paper and a pen and started to write and draw. After a long while, he suddenly turned and looked at Su Hao. His gaze was burning. The middle-aged man's burning gaze. Su Hao couldn't take it anymore. He looked at Dumb Unicorn, who had just been summoned and caught. Originally, he thought that he might as well tell them about the new form of the Dumb Unicorn. Now that he thought about it, the middle-aged man's burning gaze was too scary. Next time, maybe next time. Chapter 219, Battle of Top Students. Su Hao became famous again because of the appearance of the Bright Night Spirit's form. What was different from before was that he, Su Hao, was just an ordinary high school student back then. Now, he was a university student. A student from a prestigious university. In the eyes of ordinary people, it was not surprising that a college student from a Sprite university discovered a new evolution form. As a breaking news, it was far inferior to if it was achieved by ordinary high school students. No one could interview Su Hao, who was at Whale Island University. Before the news even made it to the trending topics, it sank. But in the eyes of the people in the industry, the appearance of the bright night spirit form was much more sensational than the appearance of the reverie butterfly form. It was only slightly worse than the spirit power solidification paper. The reason was very simple. Reverie butterfly was still a wood element sprite, just that it showed a little elusive tendencies. As for bright night spirit, it was a dual element combination of the mutually repulsive attributes light and darkness. Mutually repulsive attributes. There were many records of dual element sprites in the Union, but only one final evolved sprite possessed two mutually repulsive attributes, water and fire. The appearance of the bright night spirit form represented a combination of new attributes. It was the first sprite with the light/dark attribute at the same time. In the eyes of the higher UPS, influence was no less than spirit power solidification. In the beginning, Su Hao didn't think too much. He only saw two attributes and couldn't help but evolve them. He couldn't say it out loud. Since that morning, Su Hao had been busy with the thesis. After discussing with Master Yao, he published a simple paper mainly introducing the form of the bright night spirit. He then flew back to the laboratory. On the way, he took 3 light balls from the watch area. Because he hadn't completely tamed them, the batch of light element sprites hadn't been distributed to the various laboratories yet. Su Hao took a detour and specially took a few for recording data. It took him more than 2 weeks to settle the evolution thesis of the bright night spirit. His gains weren't small either. Apart from the fixed rewards from the Union, he also received some manuscript copies. Some research on light element and dark element sprites by sprite cultivators. The concise lessons learnt from training methods of Heavenly King level sprite trainers for light element or dark element sprites. The former provided him with 19 intelligence points. The latter gave Su Hao an idea to create the battle form of the bright night spirit. Perhaps, if I have time, I have to go to Dragon City University to learn from that dark element Heavenly King. While Su Hao was busy with the thesis, he didn't stop supervising the cultivation of the few sprites. Several light and dark element unique skills were unlocked. With Butterfly's one-on-one guidance, the bright night spirit improved rapidly. It was just that, the look of schizophrenia was becoming more and more obvious. Well, it's not a big problem. After the bright night spirit evolution thesis was published, in the Grand Provincial Guild building of Tianese Province. On the top floor, Heavenly King Yan, Xia Yang Hua, was looking at the information in his hands. On the information were Su Hao's achievements and the evaluations of some masters. If I had known, I wouldn't have hesitated to take him in as my disciple back then. Forget it, forget it. Su Hao becoming the principal's disciple is what's most beneficial to him. Even Heavenly King Xia understood. It was just a pity. He never expected that back then, Su Hao, whom he had high hopes for, would create such a big commotion in less than a year. He didn't feel like a freshman at all. The Tianese Province Association was shocked. Heavenly King Xia thought about it and called someone over. It was a man with a solemn expression. Heavenly King Xia looked at him and said, "Pass down the order, the level of protection of Su Hao's family will be increased by another level." After returning to school, Su Hao's daily life was very regular. It was just that another event was inserted into the original schedule, which was to cultivate bright night spirit. The sprites improved very quickly. The most obvious was that he successfully passed the first round of the illusion challenge. Unfortunately, the enemy in the second round is in 1+9 mode. 1 extraordinary level, 9 elite level limit. The range was slightly larger. Su Hao had tried that extraordinary battle power. It was even stronger than the Holy Brilliance Spirit King. Having passed to the second round, the ranking of Su Hao in the special training camp also rose up to 83rd place since he had yet to start with any special training camp missions, his total score was still lower than the rest who did. He didn't care much. He had obtained longer duration of access to the opening of the real illusion and the number of times he comprehended the profound meaning stone tablet, because he sold the huge light elemental crystal. 1,000 hours, and 100 comprehension times. It didn't conflict with his monthly share at the special training camp. Su Hao had enough for now. The comprehension opportunities of the profound meaning stone tablet were all used by Dazed Crow and the Big Fat Bear. The real illusion became Butterfly's research area. The bright night spirit was too weak and couldn't use any of them. Dumb unicorn. It would occasionally suffer in the real illusion, to train to be the one alive out of 10,000 soldiers in a battle. Every sprite was improving. Su Hao checked regularly. Butterfly has already reached the elite level limit, but it's actually still a little off from the evolution conditions. Its various qualities, such as spiritual force, spirit power, perception, and so on had long been satisfied. After all, it had eaten countless treasures and used the most perfect cultivation plan. Only one thing. Its attainments in illusion abilities weren't enough. Fairy Butterfly was a dual-element sprite with the wood/illusion attribute. It needed sufficient illusion ability to push it to birth new attributes. And illusion abilities were too illusionary. At this moment, the interface showed that the success rate of Butterfly's evolution was 46%. This was the first time Su Hao had seen the interface showing the success rate when deducing the evolution of sprites. Take it slower. After all, Butterfly has just reached the limit of elite level. There's still room for improvement in illusion. I'll consider evolution after some time without any progress. If the evolution fails, although it can evolve again, it will still have to wait a while to make up for the loss during the failure. Try not to fail. Just as Butterfly and Dazed Crow were stuck at the bottleneck, something happened at the special training camp. What? The school team selection is starting soon. At the central battle hall in the special training camp area. In the audience, Su Hao looked over. The battlefield in front was as big as 8 football fields. On both sides were 2 sprite trainers dozens of meters tall, like towers. It was also jokingly called the Sprite Commandeering Towers. 2 figures could be seen on the Sprite Commandeering Towers. On the field in front of them, there were each a sprite with extraordinary power. Purple Lightning Wings. Ice Emperor Tooth. One of them is a substitute member of the school team, ranked 8th in the special training camp. The other person is ranked 12th in the special training camp, but the overall difference isn't big. Zhang Zihoki, who was standing beside Su Hao, said. Don't think that he's only a substitute if he wins. Our Whale Island University's substitutes can also have many chances to go on stage during the high school league. Su Hao understood all the reasons, but the league should be after the final examination, right? Why is the selection starting now? It's for teamwork in the future. Of course, if someone improves greatly, they can still challenge the original team members and replace them. It's just that everyone is improving. It's easier said than done. Zhang Zihoki said, with your ability, you should be able to become a member of the school team next year. Unfortunately, I'm already in my 4th year of university this year. I'm only left with the last high school league and can't fight alongside you. But in the new world, we still have a chance to fight together. As he spoke, Su Hao looked at the battlefield. Butterfly and the other sprites were also brought here by him to watch this rare battle between top students of Whale Island University. It was an eye-opener. Accumulate experience. He stood together with senior Zhang Zihoki. One was one of the strongest students in the whole school. He was also a well-known figure in the school. With a handsome face. It immediately attracted the attention of many students from the special training camp. Is that the bright night spirit? It's indeed magical. Su Hao is indeed impressive, especially in the research of evolution forms. I heard that he's already a high-level sprite cultivator. If it were me, I would definitely focus on being a sprite cultivator. Clearly, his talent in sprite cultivation is even higher. Fortunately, he's a little ordinary in sprite commandeering, so us seniors barely have a way out. It's not necessarily a good thing to have a completely new form. He might not be able to figure out the final evolved form. In that case, the sprite will only be stuck at elite level its whole life. Many people discussed softly. There was admiration and jealousy in their gazes as they looked at Su Hao. Chapter 220, Ruins at the Bottom of the Lake. Su Hao's achievements in the sprite trainer profession were actually not bad either. Presenting them was enough to put many descendants of sprite trainer families and sects to shame. But, compared to his achievements in sprite cultivation, it seemed especially ordinary. High-level sprite cultivator, with a few influential papers, and a personal laboratory. Ordinary students did not know. They, the top students of Whale Island University, knew that Su Hao's status in the sprite care school next door belonged to the ruling class. His status was comparable to the number one of the special training camp, the captain of the school league. No, it was even a bit higher. On Whale Island, the team leader of the school team didn't have an overwhelming advantage in battle power against the two people ranked second and third in the special training camp. As for Su Hao, so why is he always hanging around our sprite trainer school? In the high school league, the rules were team battles. Every main member could only send one sprite, so the strong and the weak depended on their trump cards. At this moment, the two sprites on the field started probing. On the left, the purple lightning wings soared in the sky. Around it, dense thunder arcs appeared. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a blue-purple sea of thunder. On the right, the Ice Emperor Tooth, which had sharp fangs and was entirely ice-white, also released countless cold air. Snowflakes visible to the naked eye fluttered and formed a snow region in an instant. The Thunder Sea and the Snow region each occupied half of the venue. They were all accumulating power. They wouldn't lose to anyone. Luo Liwen, ranked 8th, his team battle system is stronger than Bing Qiu, who is ranked 12th, but it's only a relatively better one. The sprites of the two are evenly matched, and there are no restraining factors. I can't say for sure who will win. Zhang Zihuqi added, however, Bing Qiu is the one who initiated the challenge after all. If I have to guess, I'll bet 50 cents on Ice Emperor Tooth. Then, I'll bet 60 cents. Su Hao analyzed. Information about the two sprites appeared on the interface. He had seen a lot of beautiful attributes, but this was the first time he had seen a real battle between extraordinary beings. Indeed, very strong. Use the ability of elemental control to create the most suitable battle environment for myself. Compared to them, the Holy Brilliance Spirit King is just a weakling. Both sprites' elemental control was LV2. At LV1, it could preliminarily control the surrounding elements and enhance the power of unique skills. Basically, it was the instinct of extraordinary level sprites. At LV2, one would be able to directly influence unique skills with the help of elements. Like the big fat bear dragging a thunder ball. The two sprites in front of him were also LV2, but their foundations were high, and the range they could control was very wide, and their momentum was very great. Unfortunately, the big fat bear was used to seeing monarch rank power, so it didn't feel anything and continued to eat its own snacks. Su Hao conveniently grabbed a handful of fruits. The electric bear turned around and was stunned for a moment before another batch was grabbed away by Su Demon's claws again. Thus, Butterfly also grabbed a handful. In the day, the bright night spirit, which was in the light state, hesitated for a few seconds before reaching out and taking a bite. The dazed crow was looking at the field with a burning gaze, gesturing with its blade. It didn't have time to care about food for the time being. Only the dumb unicorn wanted to eat it, but it didn't have hands. So its whole mouth went over. Howl, howl, howl. Nay. On the field, the two sprites started to fight. The purple lightning wings was extremely fast, leaving countless lightning shadows in the air. Ice Emperor Tooth wasn't as agile as its opponent. It erected pieces of ice more than 10 meters tall around itself. It actually reflected back the thick thunder cannons. That's their Bing family's unique secret manual, Eternal Frost, which possesses extremely strong defense. But Luo Liwen also has his signature method, Purple Flame Thunder. It is said that he had a fortuitous encounter in the New World and fused Purple Flame Thunder with a destructive power stronger than ordinary thunder. The Purple Flame Thunder was pure thunder, but it also had a bit of fire characteristic. It attached itself to the Eternal Frost, constantly disintegrating the ice. A huge thunder ball. The Roaring Thunder Dragon. Blue-white frost hand. It turned the surrounding hundreds of meters into ice. The two sprites kept exchanging blows. Terrifying shock waves spread and hit the outer barrier. It rumbled. Su Hao's eyes couldn't keep up at all. He could only link it to Butterfly's vision with sprite commandeering, visual sharing, and barely see the unique skills that flashed and disappeared one after another. Too strong. The collision of powerful unique skills amazed him. Originally, Su Hao had even dreamed that he could aim for a spot in the school team before the end of the semester. But now, as expected of the seniors' ace sprites, they were very strong. Even if Butterfly evolved and used that opportunity to break through to the extraordinary level, it would be difficult for it to catch up in a short time. As expected of the strongest small group of students at Whale Island University. Too strong. Su Hao expressed, causing Butterfly and the others to be under a lot of pressure. The battle between the Purple Lightning Wings and Ice Emperor Tooth lasted for more than 10 minutes. In the end, the Purple Lightning Wings won with a slight advantage. After the battle between the two, there were several more extraordinary battles. Su Hao enjoyed watching it. For some people, they issued challenges not because they wanted to fight for a spot in the school team. Rather, it was only because today was the only day that there would be so many giant bosses among students who would be gathered here. Usually, 4 to 5 out of the 20-something master-level students in the special training camp stayed in school. That was already considered a lot. A cool battle, real special effects that didn't cost money. It wasn't just Su Hao. The others were just as amazed as their sprites. Butterfly also gained some comprehension after watching it. Not long after the school team selection ended, Su Hao received a message. The assessment mission for him in the special training camp had already been confirmed. The missions were not issued uniformly, but designed by the instructors of the special training camp for the sprites and abilities of every student. It could both gain training effects and allow them to earn rewards during missions. On the morning of March 29, Su Hao went to an office in the special training area. After knocking on the door, he pushed it open and entered. What he saw was actually Senior Wu. Your assessment mission is relatively special, Heavenly King Wu said. Originally, the assessment mission should be targeted at the scouting of the area around Dragon Court Lake or a certain sprite group. But considering your strength and the uniqueness of your sprite, the school has decided to open a special area to you. Heavenly King Wu paused. In fact, Su Hao didn't have the right to come into contact with that special area right now. But during the collective training, Su Hao made a huge contribution. It was only after taking into account his performance, his identity as the principal's disciple, and so on that the school committee had approved and this mission was formulated. It was more like a benefit. That place is more confidential. Remember not to spread what you see and hear today. Su Hao nodded. His curiosity was already completely aroused. He was a little worried that Senior Wu would say, "You'll know when the time comes." Fortunately, Senior Wu didn't keep him in suspense. Outside the entrance of our school, at the bottom of the boundless Dragon Court Lake, there's an area of ruins.